history, and that is, here we have our founders who, sadly, are mostly founding fathers, but no doubt influenced by women in their lives, in part, who were steeped in this whole, I mean, they were the generation that came out of these early Indian wars, and yet they embraced a vision of a society that was not go-it-alone militarism, that was not cowboy bluster, that was putting forward the principles of tolerance and liberty and expanding civil liberties, not attempting to withdraw them as we are. So that would be one place to look, and another place would be in the very early days after 9/11. There was a possibility of going another way, and particularly in New York, where people reached out to each other, where people comforted each other, where there was a real ethic of compassion and sympathy, and yearning for this not to go, not to resolve itself in a further violence, but to find a peaceful way of dealing with what was before us.
And Barbara Lee in Congress.
That's right, and Barbara Lee. There were, yes, but Barbara Lee. We can name one person. What does that say? Yeah.
How do you think the hypocrisy of Senator Craig or Congressman Foley impacts on this whole myth-making by administration?
Oh, jeez.
Matter of fact, the whole gay lesbian movement antithetical to the John Wayne buckskin cowboy.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, the whole gay and lesbian movement is antithetical to it. The women's movement. I mean, they're the environmental movement. I mean, but this is the problem. We have sort of individuals we have. Yearnings to challenge the culture, and then we have this culture that like lies over us. It's a cement blanket, and it's very hard to break through that. I mean, in the case of Larry Craig, well, the GOP smoke machine just comes in there and kind of quarantines him, and I mean, they keep quarantining people who don't fit into their straitjacket view of sexuality, to the point that I hope eventually there will be nobody left, except probably George W., who is inventive enough to have an interesting sexual life. Yeah.
In response to the gentleman over there, where do we start? I think perhaps by taking a look into ourselves and turning a critical eye on ourselves and the ways in which we pollute. And I know you say this culture like a cement blanket is over us and it's hard to make change, but I guess I tend to feel like if we start at the grassroots level, start with ourselves and really critically examine how we pollute, that maybe we can make some changes.
Right. And it has happened in the past. And you look at something like any of these movements that have sprung up over. I mean, who would think that the women's movement would come out of following the 50s? So there. It's up to us. Yes.
Yeah. I have to say, you have a rosier picture than I do, for sure, about the founding fathers, although this is all hypothetical.
That's why I did say sentimental. I know there's there's a dark side to all that.
And about the possible expansive thoughts, I don't know, privately, or maybe, had they lived later or whatever, about gender. I'm not very happy when I think about that group of men.
Right, yeah. Not to mention race, for example, just for
and because they were all
several
slaves,
other rather
and
large
so
details.
But I certainly appreciate enormously your attention to gender inequity in Backlash, and wow, did you take it for it. I was a little puzzled by a sniff, but I'm going to skip quickly over that and go to the book, which I also appreciate your attention to gender equality enormously for. And I kind of wonder what you, in the middle of the night or at the end of the day or whatever the latest expression is, you think about capitalism, corporations, all of that. Sorry to be so like obvious here. Is just the big wave, the big tsunami getting us all.
Right.
It's like gender. This is what I want to ask. What do you think?
What is your question?
About gender equality in the light of capitalism that doesn't have a chance in hell ever?
Well, you know, when I talk about the cement blanket of the culture, what I'm talking about really is a corporate, you know, consumer-driven capitalist culture. It's not, you know, it used to be culture came sort of organically out of a public society and reflected the, you know, civic ideals of that society, or reflected their the customs. But what we have now is this, you know, sort of this generator on the side, creating a culture really removed from our own daily experiences. It's you know, becomes increasingly passive enterprise, and has a terrible, you know, disfiguring effect on each of us in our ability to feel like agents and to feel active, and therefore to feel that we have the wherewithal to challenge the culture, because we don't even feel it as something we own. It's something that's been imposed on us. Yeah.
Probably have time for one more question.
Yes. Yes.
So are all the deeply embedded myths that are so influential in our national life, are they all unfavorable to the kind of culture that we would like to have, the kind of society we would like to build? So is it a matter of people figuring out how to escape myths, or are there better ones that we can return to and call upon that will be just as deeply embedded and potentially as powerful?
Well, perhaps if we could do away with the idea of myth and embrace an idea of who we want to be as a society, and what, you know, what our values really are. And I think this is what I was sort of driving at with the you know, returning to the principles of the founders. I mean, there was a little inkling in there of the nation we could have been, and a nation that, in its best moments, was admired by the very people who, you know, are now are repelled by what we've turned into. But you know, there was a time when we were admired for being for embracing democratic ideas, and for not being as, you know, hidebound and narrow-minded, and for thinking that perhaps there was such a thing as human perfectibility, and that human beings can change and can get better, and, you know, and we don't really, as Dorothy said in The Wizard of Oz, I feel like everything that one needs to know you can pull from The Wizard of Oz. You know, and she says if she ever goes looking for her heart's desire, she doesn't, you know, shouldn't go looking farther than her own backyard. We have in our own backyard our own set of principles and ideas about how we should be as a nation. We just need to get reacquainted with them. So, thank you.
You've been watching journalist and author Susan Faludi speaking about her newest book, The Terror Dream, Fear and Fantasy in Post-9/11 America. This program was produced by pdxjustice Media Productions. To find out more about this and other programs, please visit our website at www.pdxjustice.org. You'll find links to resources for more information on this topic, and you'll find programs featuring speakers such as David Cole, Amira Haas, Phyllis Bennis, Noam Chomsky, Rashid Khalidi, and many others. Thanks for watching, and thanks for supporting listener-sponsored radio.